At 3:07 a.m., in the silent stillness of a mansion that usually pulsed with the quiet confidence of wealth, billionaire Marcus Hale froze in the doorway of his industrial kitchen. What he saw didn't fit into any world he understood. There, under the harsh fluorescent lights, a teenage girl stood at a sink overflowing with dishes, her small hands trembling as she scrubbed endlessly, steam rising around her like a fog she was trapped inside. This was Claire Dawson, the daughter of his maid, a girl who should have been asleep before school, not fighting back tears while scraping hardened food off plates she didn't dirty. But it wasn't the dishes or the hour that shook Marcus to his core. It was the exhaustion in her eyes, an exhaustion no child should know. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of a single moment to change a life, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us spread more stories that matter. Marcus had returned early from a business trip and expected to find only silence, not a child working herself raw. Claire flinched when she saw him, but she didn't stop. His first instinct was confusion, then irritation, and finally something that felt suspiciously like guilt. He had known her mother, Rosa Dawson, for nearly 8 years. She was quiet, dependable, polite to a fault. She'd never once missed a shift. But lately, she had looked thinner, older, carrying a weight he hadn't bothered to ask about. And now her daughter was here, washing dishes meant for his staff to handle. The clatter of the kitchen faded as Marcus finally stepped forward, and for the first time in a long while, he paid attention, really paid attention. Claire's uniform shirt was one size too big. Her shoelaces were frayed. There were faint purple shadows under her eyes. Signs he had never bothered to notice. She kept her head down, but he could see her shoulders trembling, as if she expected to be scolded or worse. The sight unsettled him more than the late hour. He moved quietly to avoid startling her, and as he watched, everything he had been worrying about that week, meetings, acquisitions, investor calls, felt meaningless compared to the question burning in his mind. Why was a child working like this? He didn't have to confront her to realize something was deeply wrong. He walked back to his study, pacing in front of the shelves lined with awards he suddenly felt unworthy of. Guilt gnawed at him. This was his home, his staff, his responsibility. And somehow, within these walls, a child had been carrying a burden alone. In the morning, when Rosa arrived, she looked startled to see Marcus waiting for her by the back entrance. She looked even more startled when he asked about Claire. At first she tried to brush it off. She said Claire liked to help. She said it was nothing. But when Marcus gently pressed, her composure cracked. Rosa confessed that she had been trying to pick up extra shifts everywhere she could, cleaning offices at night, sewing on weekends, trying to cover bills that had piled up after Claire's chronic migraines had worsened. Medical tests, prescriptions, missed school days, the expenses had swallowed everything. Rosa had begged the school not to fail her daughter for missing class, but she worked too much to monitor Claire's attendance, and Claire, embarrassed by falling behind and afraid of being a burden, had simply stopped going. When Rosa mentioned they were months behind on rent and facing eviction, Marcus felt something in him shift. He had built his empire by being ruthless with numbers. Borders and bottom lines had always mattered more than people. But there, facing the desperation etched into Rosa's face, he realized how far that mindset had taken him from empathy. He had never noticed her struggles, not because she hid them well, but because he had never cared enough to look. That day, Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. He insisted that Rosa take the next week off with full pay. He arranged for Claire to see a specialist, quietly covering every cost. He contacted the school and worked with administrators to create a plan for Claire to return without penalty. He even hired extra kitchen staff so neither of them would ever feel pressured to take on work they weren't responsible for. Rosa cried so hard he had to step away to preserve her dignity. Over the next few weeks, Claire slowly regained her strength. The migraines became manageable with proper care. Marcus saw her smile for the first time during a check-in meeting at his office. It was a small smile, fragile at the edges, but it was real. And it stunned him how much that simple expression affected him. He began noticing things he had never noticed before. He noticed how Claire hummed when she was nervous. How Rosa double-checked every room twice out of habit from years of being careful around wealthy employers. He noticed how quiet his enormous mansion was without them bustling around, and how lonely he had been in the life he built. Marcus found himself making changes, not just in their lives, but his own. He improved wages and benefits for the entire household staff. He quietly funded a scholarship program at Claire's school. He even showed up at her parent-teacher meeting, a man who once refused to attend charity events unless they involved investors. When Claire's teacher mentioned she wanted to join the science club but couldn't afford the equipment fee, Marcus didn't hesitate. He covered everything anonymously. And yet Claire still found out. She hugged him in the hallway one afternoon, surprising them both. It was the first time Marcus realized how long it had been since anyone had hugged him with genuine gratitude, without expecting anything in return. It softened something inside him he didn't know had hardened. Months passed. Claire flourished. Her grade soared, her migraine stabilized, and she began dreaming again, dreams she had once buried under exhaustion and fear. Rosa regained her health too, no longer forced to work herself into the ground. For the first time in years, she slept without the crushing weight of worry. And Marcus? He discovered something far more valuable than the business deal he had been chasing that night he came home early. He discovered compassion, an asset he had been bankrupt in for far too long. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps more people see stories that remind us of the power of empathy. Before we wrap up, we have one special request. Comment below what part of the story moved you the most. By the end of that year, Marcus wasn't just Claire's mother's employer. He was family, the kind you choose, not the kind you inherit. And Claire, the girl who once washed dishes at 3 a.m. in silence, now walked confidently into her future, knowing she wasn't alone. Their lives had crossed by circumstance, but they were forever changed by kindness.